Brendan Ashby. I'm the sole member currently working on Planner. I've been working on this for a few semesters, so some of you probably already know about the project, but I'll just quickly go over it. I used to be the president of the gaming club here, RGA. Josh is now, I think, the only member part of that at our club.
I'm the assistant.
Yeah. So when I was the president there, we would run, well, RGA is the Gaming Alliance, or the Gaming Association.
That's our gaming.
Yes. And we would run tournaments, LAN parties, which I'm sure you've all maybe taken part in. And so we'd have tournaments, and we'd be running them, and we'd have lots of different games, lots of different rules, and lots of different questions. People would be coming to us, and it was hard to be efficient because we were constantly repeating the same questions and that kind of thing. So we stood back, and we were like, we need a more efficient way to do this, and a lot of this stuff can be automated, which I think is really crucial, and that was what drove the project, was there's a real-world use case for this. And it's still there, because RGA is still going, and that's still the targeted audience when we get a working release. So it started, I guess, the second semester of my freshman year. I wasn't president then, but I was a member, and I was helping do the sign-ups. And I had a guy who made a program that let you sign up for tournaments, and then it randomly generated like prizes, and that was written in C#. So that was like the official first thing. I sort of forgot about that, and I wanted to bring it and show you, but I couldn't find it. I spent an hour like this morning trying to find it. But it was just like a little C# executable, and it had like a big like silly picture in the background, and that was like the very beginning. And then it's gone through a few iterations with some other group members, but they've all graduated, so now, right now it's just me. I've already said the what. So, goals. Being the only member right now kind of restricts how much you can get done, because it's kind of, there's a lot of features that we were shooting for in the previous semester, which, you know, some we hit, some we had issues with, some we were still working towards. And when I was looking at that feature list over the summer when I was working on my proposal, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to hit a lot of those features, so I needed to kind of leverage my skill set and kind of rethink what I'm going to do this semester. And that really boiled down to the GUI and the database. We get a lot of good input when we would come in here and we would present previous semesters, things like security, you know, people like man in the middling our stuff, things like that, input sanitation, things like that, and atomicity is in when we had two people like editing the brackets for tournaments from two different places, they would like overwrite each other because of how the database is written. And that was always sort of an issue that we were trying to get rid of, and I did a good job getting rid of that. So the two things I said, GUI and database. GUI, the original thing was in PyGTK, and there were a lot of like, you know, when you're working on something and, oh, this doesn't work, or it does work, but it shouldn't work, and I don't know why, and I'm just gonna leave it for now, and I'm gonna come back to it, and that kind of thing. Well, we had stuff like that, and I was looking at the code over the summer break, and I was like, this kind of like not knowing what's going on and not really understanding what you're doing was going to cause like an overhead when I was working on the project, and I realized that it was going to keep me from getting a lot of good work done. So I looked back at what I had done for a capstone class, which is kind of interesting that my schoolwork was really actually able to help me. For a capstone class, I had to do some GUI work in for another project. I used PyQt4, which I found to be leaps and bounds better and easier to use and quicker to implement and more readable, more understandable than PyGTK. So I realized that if I refactored PyGTK, the GUI in PyGTK into PyQt4, that would be amazing. And that's what I did, so I'll show you that later. The other thing was database. It was just using SQLite 3 because, you know, Python, it's written in Python. Sorry, I didn't say that. It's written in Python. I guess you knew that from PyGTK though, but Python works with SQLite 3 really easily, so we were just doing that. But it was just, we had written our own database call, and we didn't really know how to efficiently write a database like interface, so we had like tons of like queries, and they were all different things, and that was the atomicity thing, is it wasn't specific enough. So I looked around and I worked, and I found something called SQL Alchemy, which is kind of like an abstraction layer, I think is how you would define it. I don't know if anyone's ever used SQL Alchemy, but it allows me to generate just normal Python like classes, and then put some metadata on those classes, and then I can just say like create tables, and it'll just like do it all. And then if I want to just like insert something, I just make the object and say like put this object, and it knows like what the table is, and it lines up all the columns and the rows, and it makes it really easy to get things. It makes it really easy to modify specific values and things like that. So that was perfect. So I implemented SQL Alchemy, and I'll show that later. I have a demo later. Kind of talked about everything all at once. So with the GUI, it was very kind of complex. These pictures are, by the way, the original GUI, so it'll be really easy to see some of the changes when I get to the demo. But there was a lot of, I don't know if it's called like feature creep or feature bloat or something, but there was a lot of stuff that wasn't really necessary for the first iteration to get just working features out. It was like things like, we were trying to like stylize it and have like icons and styles and things like that. And that was causing a lot of headaches, but we were spending a lot of time on that instead of getting like the core stuff, like a working database, that kind of thing. So I removed that out. I kind of brought it back down to just the simplest like thing of just getting in, creating a user, you know, signing up for a tournament, having a bracket, that kind of thing. So that was one of the big changes for the GUI. So this is the one of the things like broke going from PyTTK to PyQt4 is the bracket generator. I didn't really know, I haven't found an efficient way to kind of display a custom-made bracket using PyQt4. I mean, I'm still kind of playing with that. One idea is to use like just some of those popular online solutions and then embed that in it. But that's probably not what I'm going to do. I don't know. I'm kind of still open to that. That's going to be in my next feature push, my next sprint or whatever. But yeah, that was one of the things that actually broke. But surprisingly, going from PyGTK to PyQt4, actually a lot of things just kind of went over very well, which is good. Also in the next sprint is security. There really was no, we were doing our own version of hashing passwords with Assault, that kind of thing, which is, it's good, but you don't really want to, when it comes to security, there's a lot of like well-established ways to do it, especially with Python. There's a lot of good libraries, and you don't really want to reinvent the wheel because there's a lot, with security, there's a lot of things you need to consider. We weren't considering them. So I'm going to, in my next push, I'm going to use Twisted with Conch. To be honest, I haven't looked at it enough to be completely secure. I'm going to use Twisted with Conch. I know I'm going to use Twisted, but that's also another thing that I'm not entirely sure about. Same with, showing the bracket. I don't entirely know how I want to do security, but I do know that I want to do it using established libraries. So that's another thing that if anybody has any input, that would really help. So let's do the demo. So yeah, this is how it used to look. And when I say like feature stuff, I mean like these icons. I took that out. I didn't see the need for it. People basically just needed to know what game they were playing. They weren't like looking for specific images. This is just using random data. That's why it's all like that. Another thing that I got rid of was this sort of like idea of like the banner, because what we were doing is our original program. The idea was that multiple different programs could use it, and you would like log into a central server, and there would be like lots of different events running in lots of different places. And then you would go into the event, and then there was like tournaments in that event. And I realized that the use case we're building towards is here at RPI, and it's one specific event. The people that's setting up the event will create that specific event, so you log in, you're just logging into one event. So there's not really a need for having tournaments in a larger event space. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So that was one of the things I removed, and you can see that in the demo. I guess I'll just launch the demo first, and then we'll go into how it works. So, how I broke this down was the top. When someone wants to set up an event, there's a few things that they're going to customize. The first thing will be this header. It was kind of like the header that I said I was removing, but this header is specific to the event versus to, just the tournament running by the single event versus like multiple events with their own headers. Basically, there's just three things you need to know. There's just general metadata, like, welcome, here are the rules, restrooms are on the third floor, that kind of thing. Tournaments is just a list of tournaments that they've created. It's pretty simple. You just click on the tournament, and it goes into it. Well, not currently actually, but you click on the tournament, and it opens up tournament meta information, like rules and team size and things like that, or location. And then notifications goes back to remember in the beginning I talked about how this is really different by the automation of it. And that's the fact that when you have a bracket and you have people playing, they can report their wins or losses, which I know from the get-go sounds horrible because it's like, well, what if they lie? But the idea is that you have admins, and when they report their wins or their losses, if they agree, then the bracket can start to collapse on itself, and it can tell other users, okay, this game just ended, now you're playing this guy. So when they're like, oh my gosh, like, why am I waiting? Like, what do? I can see that, oh, I'm waiting on this game to finish, and then I play the winner of that game. And then whenever there's like a disagreement, like, oh, he said that he won, but he said that he won, then the admins can step in. But besides that, besides the admins having to come in those corner cases, or those specific cases, the automation of it automatically kind of playing itself out is kind of the whole thing I was talking about. And that lends itself to the notifications, because you would get notifications as a user when you're logged in, you know, if things happen, like, oh, you need to play this game. I mean, I can go to it, but I have sample stuff. Just a date, just information. It's pretty simple. In tournaments, it's just various games, and you would click on that, it would go in the rules. You click on that, you go in the rules, and then you would sign up for it, and then view the bracket. So like the view bracket doesn't exist right now, but that's how that would work. So yeah, let me just show some of the benefits. Everything's tiny on this screen. Everything got moved. I just wanted to show the benefit of SQL Alchemy and why that's allowing me to make my database a little bit more efficient, a lot more efficient. Here's where I just generate some sample data, which you can actually see being printed out down here. Is I just have these objects that I define using the SQL Alchemy metadata. It like tells it like what's the table if you're doing like a many-to-one, one-to-one relationship between different objects, things like that. And then you can just create them, you just stick them into the session and commit them, and then it does all the code for you to generate it. And then you can easily just print out objects, things like that. And that went a long way in allowing me to keep my database not retarded like it was. I think that's basically all I want to go over. I know it's 5:09, so yeah, I think that's all I want to say. Any questions?
I was wondering if you ever thought about making this a web app?
I have thought about making this a web app. When it originally started, we didn't really think it was going to be a web app because we were kind of focusing on just RGA. And so we were very focused on just like, you know, run a server here, you know, hey guys, here's the client, you know, connect to the server just right there. But then when we were thinking larger, we were thinking, you know, we could distribute this to people and it would be simpler to distribute to a lot of people if it was just a web app that they just create an account on. I have thought about it, I haven't done it. I don't really have the expertise to make it a web app, and now that I'm like the only member, it's kind of out of the question for me. But it is an option. And there are a lot of bracket generators on the web, so that's where we pull a lot of inspiration. So we have looked at other web apps that do similar things.
What does the server run on?
What is the server run on?
Yeah, like the client's server. Like is it a Windows?
Oh, it's just like similar to this, except no GUI. It's just a Python.
I mean, is it cross-platform?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I try and keep everything in Python so that I don't have to even think about that.
Okay. Because we have a Windows box now, so we can run it for the first one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have because I remember I made the box too for RGA, so I have it running on that Linux box.
Okay. Well, because we have a new host, and I have like a Debian guest and a Windows guest.
It's still an MS Eaton.
Yeah. It's new hardware though.
It is in V2, right?
Hmm?
Is RGA server, is it in V2 or in the basement of?
It's in the basement of MS Eaton. I don't know the name of it.
Yeah, we bought a new server for the union.
Yeah, they funded it. But yeah.